It was a moonless night, the kind that blankets the world in a thick shroud of darkness. I was navigating the winding backroads of New England, taking a shortcut to shave some time off my journey. The dense forest on either side of the narrow road seemed to press in, the skeletal branches of ancient trees reaching out like fingers of the underworld. As I drove deeper into the heart of the woods, a dense mist began to rise from the damp ground. It curled around my truck like ghostly tendrils, obscuring my view of the road ahead. The air grew thick with an unsettling stillness, and a sense of foreboding settled over me like a heavy cloak. Suddenly, emerging from the mist, I caught sight of an old wrought iron gate. Intricate, rusted symbols adorned its arch, marking the entrance to a cemetery that lay beyond. The gate creaked open with an eerie groan as if welcoming me to a place that time had forgotten. Against my better judgment, I decided to explore. The truck's headlights sliced through the mist as I slowly rolled into the graveyard. The tombstones, weathered and cracked, stood like sentinels in the pale glow of my headlights. Strange symbols, unfamiliar to my eyes, were etched into the stones, casting an otherworldly aura over the burial ground. As I ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew heavier, the air thick with a sense of ancient malevolence. The mist clung to the ground, swirling around the tombstones like ethereal spirits. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, not by the eyes of the living, but by something far more sinister. Parking the truck, I stepped out into the chilling night. My breath hung in the air like spectral whispers as I walked among the graves. The symbols etched into the tombstones seemed to pulse with an ominous energy, telling a story lost to time. It was a language I couldn't decipher, but its meaning resonated in the marrow of my bones. In the heart of the cemetery, I discovered an ancient mausoleum. Its stone door, adorned with more of those cryptic symbols, creaked open with a deafening echo. My flashlight cut through the darkness as I cautiously stepped inside, the air within heavy and oppressive. The interior was a labyrinth of cobweb-covered corridors and vaults that seemed to stretch endlessly into the shadows. The eerie silence was broken only by the distant hooting of an owl, a mournful dirge that echoed through the tomb-like chambers. As I delved deeper into the oppressive darkness of the catacombs, the feeble beam of my flashlight flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that danced along the ancient stone walls. The air grew thicker, laden with the scent of damp earth and the unmistakable tinge of something long forgotten. The symbols etched onto the walls took on an otherworldly glow, their intricacy revealing a malevolent artistry that spoke of an ancient cult's presence. Twisted figures adorned with grotesque masks and elongated limbs writhed in the flickering light, frozen in the midst of arcane rituals that had unfolded in these subterranean depths. My footsteps echoed through the passages, each one seemingly swallowed by the oppressive silence that clung to the catacombs like a shroud. It was a silence that seemed to listen, an unnerving stillness that whispered of secrets buried in the marrow of the earth. The symbols became more than mere carvings, they pulsated with an eerie energy, as if the very essence of the cult that had once thrived here lingered in the shadows. The walls seemed to throb with a macabre heartbeat, a rhythm that resonated with the darkness that seeped from the very pores of the stone. As I traced the symbols with the trembling beam of my flashlight, they began to weave a chilling narrative. The cult had worshipped entities beyond the understanding of mortal minds, summoning forces that transcended the boundaries of the living and the dead. Scenes of sacrificial rites and unholy communion played out in the glyphs, the twisted figures painted in hues of crimson that seemed to bleed from the stone itself. The air grew thick with a palpable malevolence, a force that stirred in response to the intruder in its unhallowed domain. I felt the weight of unseen eyes upon me, as if the very walls observed my every move with a hunger that transcended the grave. The deeper I ventured, the more the catacombs seemed to resist my presence. Whispers clawed at the edge of my consciousness, indistinct voices that spoke in an ancient tongue, their words laden with a sinister power that gnawed at the fringes of sanity. It was as if the very walls had memories, memories that clung to the air like a suffocating embrace. My heart quickened, its rhythmic beats synchronized with the cadence of unseen drums that resonated through the subterranean chambers. The symbols on the walls seemed to writhe, their forms twisting and contorting as if infused with a malevolent life of their own. I could almost hear the echo of chants, the ghostly remnants of rituals that had transcended the bounds of time. My senses heightened, I became aware of a faint, distant chanting that reverberated through the cold stone corridors. Following the haunting melody, I found myself in a cavernous chamber illuminated by the flickering light of torches that lined the walls. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, adorned with more symbols and surrounded by hooded figures swaying rhythmically to the haunting chant. My breath caught in my throat as I realized that I had intruded upon a ritual that transcended the boundaries of time itself. Suddenly, the chanting ceased, and the hooded figures turned to face me. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and a guttural growl emanated from the depths of the chamber. Panic surged through me as I realized that I had awakened an ancient evil that hungered for the souls of the living. The figures, now revealed to be spectral entities, began to approach with an unnatural grace. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. Desperation clawed at my mind as I searched for an escape from the suffocating darkness. In my frantic attempt to flee, I stumbled upon an ancient tome lying open on the stone floor. Its pages depicted grotesque illustrations of unspeakable horrors, and the words seemed to writhe on the parchment. As I scanned the arcane text, a revelation struck me with chilling clarity. The ritual sought to channel the essence of the living into the spectral realm, allowing the ancient evil to feed on the energy of the trespassers. With a surge of terror, I realized that I had become entwined in a ritual not bound by the limitations of life and death. The symbols, the chanting, the ancient evil, all were part of a malevolent force that sought to consume the essence of the living, a force I had unwittingly unleashed. As the spectral figures closed in, their unearthly howls reverberating through the chamber, I desperately sought a way to break the sinister connection. I clutched the ancient tome and began reciting an incantation that seemed to resonate with the symbols etched into the tombstones and walls. The air crackled with energy as the symbols on the altar and surrounding walls pulsed with an otherworldly light. The malevolent force recoiled, its ethereal minions dissipating into the shadows. The chamber trembled, and a blinding light enveloped me as I continued the incantation. When the light subsided, I found myself standing outside the mausoleum, the mist swirling around me like a dissipating nightmare. The symbols on the tombstones had lost their ominous glow, and the ancient evil that had lurked within the depths of the cemetery was quelled. Exhausted and shaken, I stumbled back to my truck. The night seemed to stretch on indefinitely as I drove away from that accursed place. The backroads of New England held secrets, secrets that defied the boundaries of time and sought to ensnare the souls of those who dared to venture into the realm of the ancient and malevolent unknown. It was a long haul, and fatigue had settled into my bones like an unwelcome companion. The neon glow of a distant truck stop beckoned, promising respite from the monotony of the road. I guided my rig into the secluded lot, nestled among the towering pines of the Pacific Northwest. The air carried a chill that hinted at the mysteries hidden in the dense forest surrounding the truck stop. As I parked my truck, I couldn't shake the feeling that something lurked just beyond the reach of my headlights. Ignoring the unease, I headed inside the dimly lit convenience store, the worn bell above the door jingling my arrival. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of stale coffee and fluorescent lighting. The cashier, an elderly woman with tired eyes, greeted me with a nod. I grabbed a cup of lukewarm coffee and headed to the windowed corner, seeking solace in the flickering glow of my laptop. As I sipped the bitter brew, my gaze wandered beyond the confines of the truck stop. The shadows in the forest seemed to dance, their movements unnatural, like tendrils reaching out to ensnare the unsuspecting. A flicker of curiosity ignited within me, urging me to explore the secrets concealed in the depths of the woods. I stepped back into the chilly night, the truck stop's feeble lights dimming as I ventured into the shadowy embrace of the trees. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the feeble glow of distant stars. The crunch of gravel beneath my boots echoed through the silence as I penetrated deeper into the forest. It didn't take long for the woods to reveal their secrets. As I approached a clearing, a soft glow emanated from within. Hiding behind the cover of thick foliage, I peered into the scene that unfolded before me. Mysterious figures, cloaked in hooded robes, encircled an ancient, weathered altar. Their chants, guttural and rhythmic, filled the air with an eerie cadence. Unearthly symbols adorned the clearing, drawn in blood upon the ground, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. My heart quickened as I realized I had stumbled upon a dark ritual, a convergence of forces beyond human comprehension. The figures moved with purpose, their movements synchronized with the ancient incantations that hung heavy in the air. As I observed, the shadows surrounding the cultists seemed to gain a life of their own. Unnatural shapes slithered through the darkness, reaching out toward the fringes of the clearing as if hungry for unsuspecting passers-by. My breath caught in my throat, fear coursing through my veins. Curiosity battled against reason, and an inexplicable force compelled me to unveil the truth hidden within the ritual. I inched closer, my every step echoing like a drumbeat in the silent night. The cultists remained oblivious to my presence, consumed by their dark communion. A sudden snap of a twig beneath my boot betrayed my position. The hooded figures halted their chant, their gaze turning toward the edge of the clearing. Panic gripped me as their eyes, obscured by the shadows of their hoods, seemed to lock onto mine. In that moment, time hung suspended. The air thickened with tension as the cultists assessed the intrusion. With a guttural roar, the leader raised an ancient dagger, its blade glinting malevolently in the flickering glow of the ritual fire. Fear propelled me into action, and I retreated into the cover of the trees. The shadows, now fully aware of my presence, writhed with a newfound intensity. I felt their tendrils brushing against my skin, cold and insidious, urging me to abandon the pursuit of truth. Yet, a stubborn resolve fueled my determination. I circled the clearing, avoiding the gaze of the hooded figures, determined to uncover the purpose behind their dark rites. The forest seemed to close in around me, the ancient trees whispering secrets of long-forgotten pacts and supernatural perversions. As I reached the opposite side of the clearing, a sight both mesmerizing and horrifying unfolded before me. The cultists had summoned an otherworldly entity, a formless mass of darkness that hovered above the altar. Its presence sent shivers down my spine, a palpable malevolence that defied description. The cultists, their faces contorted with fervor, began to offer sacrifices to the eldritch being. Small trinkets, seemingly inconsequential, were cast into the darkness. The entity absorbed the offerings, its form pulsating with a sickening energy. A realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. The cult sought to harness the power of the supernatural, to manipulate forces beyond the understanding of mortal minds. My instincts screamed at me to flee, to leave this accursed place and never look back. Yet, a stubborn curiosity compelled me to witness the culmination of the ritual. As the last offering was made, the entity's form solidified into a grotesque semblance of a humanoid shape. Its eyes, devoid of pupils, fixated on me with an unnerving intensity. A chorus of whispers, ancient and guttural, echoed through the clearing, as if the very fabric of reality strained against the intrusion. In that moment, I understood the malevolence that lurked within the forest. The cultists had unwittingly unleashed a force that defied the laws of nature, a being that hungered for the essence of the living. The shadows, the rituals, the supernatural entity, all were pieces of a puzzle that painted a grim picture of the occult. A primal fear gripped me as the entity extended a shadowy tendril toward me. I stumbled backward, breaking the trance that held me captive. The forest seemed to rebel against the intrusion, the shadows recoiling as I retreated. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled speed, I fled the clearing, the haunting whispers and guttural chants fading into the distance. The truck stop's lights appeared like a beacon in the night, and I emerged from the forest, gasping for breath. I drove away from that secluded truck stop, the haunting memories of the ritual etched into my mind. The ancient forces that lurked within the Pacific Northwest's dense woods were not to be trifled with, and I, a mere observer, had glimpsed the eldritch horrors that dwelled in the shadows. As the road stretched ahead, I pondered the darkness that clung to the forest, wondering how many unsuspecting travelers had fallen victim to the malevolent forces concealed within the ancient pines. The supernatural secrets of the Pacific Northwest would remain hidden, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next curious soul to stumble upon the unholy communion of cultists and eldritch entities. The rhythmic hum of my truck's engine resonated through the dense Louisiana night as I navigated the labyrinthine roads that cut through the heart of the swamps. The air was thick with humidity, and the croaking of unseen creatures echoed in the darkness. I was a lone traveler in this eerie expanse, my cargo the only companion in the sea of shadows. The glow of my headlights revealed twisted branches and moss-draped trees that seemed to reach out like skeletal fingers from the murky waters. The faint glow of distant fireflies added an ethereal quality to the surroundings. It was in this desolate landscape that I heard whispers of a legendary bridge, shrouded in fog and tainted by a gruesome tale that sent shivers down the spines of even the hardiest locals. As I neared a small, weather-beaten town, I caught wind of the infamous bridge. Locals spoke of a supernatural loop, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred into a nightmarish reality. Some claimed it was cursed by the spirits of those who had met untimely ends on its unforgiving asphalt. Curiosity gnawed at me, fueled by the diesel coursing through my veins. I parked my truck at the town's edge, the subtle creaking of the suspension settling into the stagnant night air. The townsfolk eyed me with a mix of caution and pity, their expressions a silent warning that I dared not heed. At the local diner, a weathered man with sunken eyes and a deep southern drawl spun the tale of the haunted bridge. Legend had it that those who crossed it would become trapped in a never-ending loop, reliving their deepest fears and regrets until the bridge itself fed on the fear and swallowed their sanity whole. Despite the unsettling warnings, the call of the supernatural beckoned me like a siren's song. I fueled my rig and set out toward the fabled bridge, the looming fog swallowing the road ahead. The dense mist wrapped around my truck like a spectral embrace as I approached the bridge that connected the realms of the living and the dead. The first pass over the bridge was uneventful, the suspension creaking under the weight of my truck. But as I rolled onto the other side, a chill slithered down my spine. The surroundings seemed to shift, the swampy landscape morphing into distorted versions of itself. The air became heavy with an oppressive energy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were scrutinizing my every move. I pressed on, determined to unravel the mysteries of this cursed bridge. The second crossing plunged me into a nightmarish loop. The fog thickened, and the surroundings warped into grotesque shapes that defied the laws of nature. I was trapped in a perpetual cycle of crossing and recrossing the bridge, the landscape contorting with each iteration. As I traversed the haunted stretch of asphalt, the fog itself seemed to come alive. Whispers echoed through the mist, disembodied voices murmuring tales of tragedy and despair. Faces materialized in the fog, contorted in agony, their eyes pleading for release from the spectral grip of the bridge. The cycle became a relentless dance with the supernatural, my truck a pawn in the malevolent machinations of forces beyond comprehension. Each crossing exposed me to my deepest fears and regrets, twisting my perception of reality. It was as if the bridge fed on the fear it conjured, growing stronger with each pass. Days blurred into nights as I grappled with the torment of the haunted bridge. Sleep became an elusive luxury, and the boundaries between dreams and waking hours melted into a surreal tapestry of horror. The truck stop lights flickered in the distance, a beacon of normalcy in the sea of supernatural chaos. Desperation took hold as I struggled to break free from the relentless loop. The townsfolk's warnings echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the sinister fate that awaited those ensnared by the bridge's curse. The swamps, once serene, now seemed to pulse with an ancient malevolence that sought to consume my very soul. With each crossing, the bridge revealed more of its insidious nature. I witnessed my past transgressions play out in spectral forms, each mistake and regret haunting the fog-clad expanse. It was a psychological torment, a descent into the darkest recesses of my own psyche. Yet, within the heart of this supernatural maelstrom, a spark of determination flickered. I refused to succumb to the bridge's malevolent grasp. The diesel engine roared defiantly as I confronted the spectral apparitions that materialized in my path. The fog, once suffocating, now seemed to recoil in the face of my resolve. In a moment of clarity, I realized that the bridge fed on fear, and it was fear that bound me to its relentless loop. I steeled my nerves and faced the phantoms that emerged from the mist, challenging the nightmares that sought to imprison me. The cycle began to break, the fog dispersing like a retreating army. The haunted bridge, once a malevolent force, now lay silent beneath the moonlit night. As I crossed its asphalt for what felt like the final time, a sense of triumph surged within me. The townsfolk, their cautionary gazes replaced with a mix of awe and disbelief, watched as I emerged from the fog-shrouded bridge. I had defied the supernatural, breaking free from the clutches of a curse that ensnared the souls of the unwary. As I rumbled away from the accursed bridge, the fog dissipating in my rearview mirrors, I couldn't shake the weight of the supernatural ordeal that clung to my memories. The haunted bridge remained a twisted enigma, a testament to the unfathomable mysteries that lurked in the heart of the Louisiana swamps. The diesel engine hummed a triumphant melody, drowning out the lingering whispers of the fog. I drove into the night, the shadows of the swamps retreating as the fog-shrouded bridge faded into the rearview mirror. The road ahead stretched into the unknown, but I carried with me the indomitable spirit that had conquered the supernatural, leaving the haunted bridge a mere echo in the recesses of a long, winding journey.